Hola, señor, señoritas, ¿cómo estás? Hey. An absolutely historic, monumental chapter when it comes to the story progression for this chapter, without a doubt. This chapter is big, huge, but we have a 1 month break. That means for this chapter, I'm going to keep it simple and bare bones, focus on the analysis, very little frills here, because over the next month, there are so many One Piece discussion videos, theory videos to do. I got so many ideas on the mind. So therefore, eyes open for that kind of stuff. But for this video, mostly analysis and a little bit, just a sprinkle of frills.
You're goddamn right.
It is what it is. So this chapter does have faults, despite the historic story progression of this chapter. We break it down as per usual. The pacing in the chapter structure, the character components, and then of course the story components for this chapter. But before we get started, I do want to give some love to my boy. Even though he has issues, I'm going to give some love to my boy Christian Terlato of the Red Force podcast, who has some material that you should absolutely check out. So here is a quick word from him.
Wonder how King's gonna justify Katakuri beating Kizaru now. Hi, I'm Christian Tolato, and you might know me from the Red Force podcast. I've got a new action-packed comic for you. It's called Scarlet Vixen. It follows Dinah Cazador, a strong-willed freedom fighter trying to reclaim her homeland. It's part of the Webtoon's Call to Action contest, so help your boy win by giving it a look. And I promise, you won't be disappointed. It's completely 100% free, and all you need to do is click the link below. One Piece is on break for a month, so I know you've got some spare time to check out something new. They say dreams never die, but I need your help to make my dreams come true. So click the link in the description and become part of history by helping a fellow One Piece fan achieve his dreams of becoming a professional comic artist. Now, back to King.
Fraudulent. So now that we have gone to Christian Terlato's message, once again, check out Scarlet Vixen, link in the box below. And now let's get to actually the chapter review. So first of all, as per usual, the pacing and the chapter structure. For this chapter, we have 7 parts. Holy Land in lockstep with Morgans and the paper spread across the world, globally. Number 2 is the Udon Port area. Number 3 is the Flower Capital celebration going on. Number 4 is beneath the main castle of the Flower Capital. Number 5 is the former excavation camp. Number 6 is that we go back to Flower Capital. And then number 7 is the area near Onigashima where it's landed right now. So the chapter is broken down into those 7 parts. Pacing is actually nothing really to write home about, because it's actually very, very, very clear that Oda has been doing a lot of skipping ever since Kaido has been beaten, and isn't taking the time to kind of flesh out specific details at this point in time. So as a result, there is a lot of open-ended questions, and we still just press on with the hopes that maybe Oda will touch upon these things in the future through flashbacks. So this chapter is unfortunately no exception to this running trend with Oda for the past few chapters. But I do have some guesses as to why Oda is skipping so much material. Number 1, we've been in Wano Country for almost 4 years now. Almost 4 years, okay? Next month, July, is actually the 4-year month for this arc. Literally almost 4 years in a few weeks' time. Number 2, and I think for me, it's very important, the anime fills in the gaps. I know it annoys a lot of people that only read the manga, but it's the truth here, where the anime over the course of this arc of Wano Country has been making things a lot more clearer, and often for the better, not for the worse, sometimes for the worse, but often for the better, where they clear things up. So there's even evidence in the past where Oda was talking to Toei about filling in certain details. So once again, Oda, I think, will take certain liberties here and skip some material because the anime will eventually fill it in the future. Yes. And I also want to say this too. On a side note, structure-wise, it is kind of odd that Jinbei is chilling by himself in the castle when the food arrives. Because remember, in chapter 977, Or, of course, in the amazing episode of 982, directed by Megumi Shitani, they actually held off their cheers for Jinbei until they won the war. And they would hold this great party. But in this chapter, they're cheering the whole Kanpai thing without Jinbei. Huh? What? I'm going to say it's a structural problem here because maybe in the future, Oda will get to it. But I would think, considering what happened in that chapter, in that episode, okay, we're holding on for Jinbei in the future, but Jinbei's in the castle by himself while they're all cheering, Kanpai, having a good time at the end of this chapter. Seems a bit odd, but again, there could be more to come for that in the future. So I'll say it's a overall structure problem for this chapter. So that's number one, the pacing and structure components for this chapter. So now let's get into the character components for this chapter. For this chapter, let's start off with the monkey massive Nika D. Luffy. Real quick, the Gorosei wanted to remove the initial D from Luffy's wanted poster, even though it's been there for the entire journey of the story so far. So they wanted Monkey Luffy, which, you need, it sounds sus, I don't care. You need the D. The D has that impact, that girthy, okay, I'm gonna stop.
Stop.
It has the impact, because just saying Monkey Luffy, who says Monkey Luffy? Luffy Monkey? No, you need the D there. So just how Gold D Roger's name was changed in the posters to Gold Roger, not Gold D Roger. And the Gorosei also wanted to change the main image for his wanted poster and keep the awakening of the Nika hidden. So this actually implies very strongly that there is a connection with the initial D and the sun god Nika. It's not confirmed per se, but it does give more credence to the idea that the Nika and the D are connected. So that's character number one. Is it more theory-based, more frill-based? Of course. But again, it does give more credence to that idea. Number two, Tengu Yama Hitetsu. Also, confirmed now, Kozuki Sukiyaki. So as far as I know, Randy Troy was one of the first guys to actually call this out, that he was Sukiyaki. And I do recall that in the anime, it's the same voice actor for Sukiyaki and Hitetsu. So Randy Troy, big ups. If you don't know who he is, check out his YouTube content. It's muy bueno, for damn sure. Now, the Kokeshi dolls, apparently, were his creation. And he is a blacksmith, but according to him, only for fun. So even though he created the Ame no Hibakiri, and I think also the Nyakatetsu, it's just for fun. So kind of like what? Like Saitama? He's a hero, but it's for a hobby.
趣味でヒーローをやっているものだ。
Now, fair enough, but he's that skilled when it's only a part-time job for him, because in the past he was, of course, the shogun of Wano Country. And he also knows Robin's full name, which implies that he has more insight on global affairs than most in Wano Country. Though, to be fair, Kinemon should know her full name, and also, they did have a meeting in 954, but I guess Kinemon never told him the full name of Robin, even though he was on the ship since Punk Hazard, or I guess he never got the full name during the meeting. So, either way, it's implied that he does have more knowledge and insight than most in Wano Country because he knows her full name. And of course, beyond that, he knows where ancient weapon Pluton is. And then finally, the last but certainly not the least for character for this chapter is going to be Green Bull, aka Ryokyugyu, aka Aramaki. So Green Bull has arrived, and he has that standard admiral, like really tall height, and he looks like freaking Chad from Bleach, which is sad. That's really, really, really sad. But outside of that, his design, peen. It's pretty clean. According to the scanlators, his appearance is actually based on a character called Aramaki, played by Haroda Yoshio in a film called Ronin Gai in the 90s. The flower petals on his pants, avid smoker, sunglasses, again, peen. But more importantly, his design comes with a sword. Scratch my chinny chin chin. I shaved a feeling pretty good, but still scratch my chinny chin chin. Apparently, his sword is called a chokuto. A chokuto is a straight, single-edged Japanese sword that is modeled after swords in ancient China. So, bin chiling. And it's the same sword that Sasuke uses in Naruto. So Sasuke is also bin chilling. Now, at this point in time, I'm not too sure if his sword is sheathed or not sheathed. If it is sheathed, then that means that he may have a black blade, which is a huge claim to this dude's swordsmanship skills. He is top notch in terms of swordsmanship. However, there's an idea that I heard where actually, instead of a black blade, it's a wooden sword, like a kendo sword. And this would be kind of like Hawkins and his straw sword, where Hawkins' straw sword does emulate his own abilities. And the same would apply here with Green Bull, where this wooden kendo sword also emulates his own ability. Fascinating. Very intriguing here. And also the tattoo on his body means double suicide at Death River. Now moving on with Green Bull here, Green Bull can create some sort of tree-like roots from his body and use these roots to absorb fluid from people. So it's actually a very similar power to who? Sir Crocodile, where Sir Crocodile could absorb and dry any moisture with his sand particles in his hand. So Green Bull is probably doing this for his fasting, because you actually see him kind of drink booze, but rather than actually drink the booze like a normal human being would, he actually absorbs it through his own tree roots. So there's a good chance that he no longer needs to actually consume food regularly, because he's always absorbing fluids, nutrients, and so on through these roots. And potentially, if he is photosynthetic, he's also absorbing things from the sunlight as well. That's Green Bull. So he's not really fasting, but he also is. He's human fasting. He's not plant fasting. There we go. Now, Green Bull is powerful enough to take down a few of Kaido's old subordinates, including Old Maid, Babanuki, but also King the Wildfire and Queen the Plague. But based on King's design, it looks like he is still weakened / recovering from his fight against Zoro. So at least King the Wildfire is not at full power. And what's also intriguing here is that King gets stabbed by Green Bull's roots, but his body is not actually shriveling up and no water or fluids being sucked out from the tree roots. But in Queen the Plague's case, we do see him actually get smaller and shrivel up, and now he is the meme that Oda actually drew in an SBS where we have Skinny Queen. And according to Queen in the song, if he's skinny, he's going to be too damn popular. So that difference here is probably the result of the Lunarian body, where the Lunarians can survive in almost any environment. And then after this, we have Green Bull is able to naturally affect the plant life wherever he walks, wherever he goes. The area around Udon prior to this chapter was a wasteland, but now it is full of trees and flowers and so on. The entire area is full of natural vegetation. Now, this could be a result of potentially extended combat between Queen and King that we just haven't seen, because Green Bull's clothes is somewhat ripped. Again, we see nothing because Oda did a lot of skipping. But I think it's more so a passive thing, where he walked to Udon, and then as a result, the vegetation around him passively started to bloom and become more nourished. And we actually see him walking towards the flower capital, and as he walks there, he is making a pathway, a road of flowers. So this actually indicates, I think more likely now, that he is a Logia rather than a mythical Zoan or a Paramecia, because we have in the past seen this before. For example, Ace. When Ace arrived at Drum Island, him just existing there, he made it stop snowing, even though Drum Island is known for almost non-stop snow. And in this case here, you have a wasteland, but Green Bull, by just being there, is able to actually affect the environment where the wasteland is disappearing and now there's actual vegetation growing. So Logias passively can affect the environment around them, which is why Green Bull is probably a Logia rather than a mythical Zoan or a Paramecia. And then finally, he has an Akainu complex, because he says this in the Viz translation: I love this guy's cut no corners attitude. I want to hear him say, "You did good," when I bring him this kid's head. Rara. So Green Bull isn't a Kingu fanboy, probably. Though someone during my Twitch stream, by the way, Twitch and YouTube Requiem live stream reactions to the chapter, link in the box below. Someone during that Twitch stream did mention how Green Bull might be talking about Garp instead of a Kainu because he used the term attaboy in the scanlations, which is in reference to Garp, potentially. Though I still think it's more so a Kainu. So the same way Aokiji was a big fan of Garp back in the day, where he was a huge Garp fanboy. And we see this in the One Piece Strong World, episode 0 and chapter 0. I think the same way Aokiji viewed Garp back then is the same way Green Bull views the Kainu now. And that is the complete character component for this chapter. And now, finally, we arrive at the story progression components for this chapter, where we have reached historic milestones. But again, I'm not going to go too hard into theory crafting here, so let's get right into it. Number 1, the Gorosei have failed to suppress Luffy's new image and such. This, I think, will have an impact in future arcs, and honest to God, I'm banking on Elbaf. I really, really am. But keep in mind here is that the Gorosei tried to suppress the image of the Nika and also remove the D, but that cannot be done. That D is too powerful, too strong, too much arm hockey hardening on that D. That's number 1. Number 2, the last message that CP0 sent out was, "It's Big Mom's ship." That's what Big News Morgan said. This implies that the Big Mom pirates who were waiting at the bottom of the waterfall for Big Mom have now left the area. Why? We have no idea. Again, there's a skip no me. Very strong with Oda-chan, but it's very hard to believe that they would just leave the area without trying to figure out what happened to their mother and eldest brother. So this might explain why we didn't see Pero Sparrow in Udon, which I'll get to real soon again. Now, after this is Luffy, Law, and Kid. They each get 3 million berries for their bounties as a result of beating Big Mom and, of course, beating Kaido. So I did a video recently about the Strat's new post-Wano bounties. Over here, check it out. And I was really close to Luffy's new bounty. But Kid and Law also match in bounties to Luffy. Now, to be fair, the exact same thing happened in Dressrosa, where in Dressrosa, both Luffy and Law get 500 million berry bounties after they defeat Doflamingo. And in this case here, because Kaido and Big Mom's bounties almost equal 9 billion, then their 3 bounties total equal 9 billion. And again, it's shared equally through all 3 of them. So let's say, for example, instead of the 3 guys, it was 4. Let's add Urouge, the man that pushed off Kaido from Balloon Terminal. If it was Urouge, Kid, Law, and Luffy that beat Big Mom and Kaido, then in theory, the bounty will be split 4 ways, where it would be 2.25 billion a pop for each supernova that is accredited for leading the charge against 2 Yonko. Something of that sort. Kid has the highest bounty increase in the series, jumping by 2,030 million from 470 million. Kid has the highest bounty increase in the series, so the Kid fanboys eating astronomically well. All their wanted posters also got upgraded pictures. Guernica, assumingly the CP0 agent that actually escaped, that ran away from the island, Guernica took those pictures, so it's a safe assumption here that for everyone a part of Kid, Law, and Luffy's crew, they also got updated new pictures for their wanted posters. So that is the first major thing when it comes to bounties, all right? We don't have the shop bounties yet, but we have 3 big fat bounties, 3 billion a pop. Now, number 4 for story. We finally get to see the room that Brook talked about in chapter 934, when Brook first mentioned the poneglyph and the Kokeshi dolls. And we know from that conversation that the poneglyph in the room where Robin is right now is not a road poneglyph, it is a regular blue poneglyph. That's number 4. Number 5 is that Sukiyaki was stated to be ill in the Odin flashback in 963 and later died, quote, in 965. But that wasn't the case at all. So he didn't die from the illness / poison that Orochi gave him. And he did escape ultimately, but it is kind of weird knowing how meticulous Orochi is that he never actually hunted Sukiyaki or that kind of stuff. Maybe he just forgot? It's not really clear, but he survived and he's alive and he's here today. It is what it is. And then also, real quick, on that same chapter, 934, on a side note here, Shinobu is the one who states Kokeshi dolls when Brook mentions the room. And in this chapter, latest chapter One Piece, 1053, Sukiyaki guesses that some of the vassals know that Tengami Tetsu, that was his alias, and he was actually Sukiyaki. So maybe Shinobu is actually one of these people that knew the entire time that Hitetsu was actually Sukiyaki because she was a ninja under the Kozuki family before Orochi took the shogunate. Very likely there. Very likely. Now, number 6. The new ancient... Let me calm down. I'm sorry. No frills. Analysis. Ancient weapon Pluton is here. Ancient weapon Pluton is here in Wano country. Apparently, the Polar of Alabasta, this whole time, talked about how the ancient weapon was located in Wano country. This is absolutely major news. And I think the biggest reveal absolutely for this chapter. The likely reason why Kaido didn't want to leave and what Big Mom had deduced about this country having a hint about the One Piece as she was falling down to the hole that Law made. The reason why the Gorosei really wanted to get a force into Wano country ASAP, it all kind of revolves around ancient weapon Pluton. Wow. So there are so many things you can deduce and dive into for lore and theories, etc. But I'm gonna say it again, another video, absolutely. And there's a 1 month break and there's plenty of time. So I need to dive head first and give you guys, like what Morgan's does, the biggest scoop on Pluton. After this, King and Queen were somehow in Udon. So 7 days had passed since chapter 1051. And we knew that Yamato had forced the fodder soldiers to stay put, even though they, quote, in the Viz translation, quote, didn't want to be slaves. So whether or not Queen and King were picked up by the samurai later on and then put in Udon to serve prison time, or King and Queen recovered by themselves off screen and then for some strange reason decide to go to Udon, we don't know because this entire thing is skipped. We have no idea what is or is not the case prior to Green Bull's arrival, which is why, once again, the anime will probably fill in those gaps. But what we do know, moving forward from this, is that Green Bull has taken control of Udon after he beats King and Queen and the rest of the guys there, and he's called over a marine ship. So he's gonna probably take these guys to custody and ferry them away to Impel Down or some place like that. And right now, the man himself is making way to the Flower Capital. Speaking of which, the festival for Kaido's defeat and Momo's rise to the Shogun has started. Brook is doing a number with Hiyori, which is kind of cute, and most of the Strats are enjoying themselves. The fireworks are lit, there are cheers made, kanpai, and all that good stuff. Kid tries to attack Luffy, but whatever, because the major note here is that Luffy is a new Yonko. New Yonko have been crowned. Shanks, Blackbeard, still Yonko. Luffy is now a Yonko, and Bug E. Bug E is now a Yonko. So Oda went full force meme. Full force. And Buggy now has the power to change the world. Well, he always has, because, you know, obviously, he can manipulate causality like Griffith can. The dude is crazy busted. And maybe he's like Frieza, where 2 weeks of training and he's absolutely Yonko level, conquers Haki infusion, knows real Haki, awaken, all that crazy stuff. Maybe. That's pretty heavy theory crafting, but maybe. But what's even more important here is the foundation of all this madness is based on two statements that Aramaki makes. Number one in this chapter, the Navy doesn't have any spare manpower to send around performing cleanup. And the world outside is one unholy mess right now. Something outside, there are so many crazy events that are going on outside right now that not only made Buggy a Yonko, but also made Luffy a Yonko. This is a very important distinction here. Kid, Law, and Luffy have the same bounty after they are accredited for defeating two Yonko, Bim and Kaido. But it's only Luffy who is actually given the status of Yonko, which is why Kid charges Luffy immediately. But what happened in Wano Country wouldn't make him a Yonko per se. It's stuff happening outside of Wano Country that makes Luffy a Yonko. Which means probably one thing. The Grand Fleet is going nuts. We have seen the cover stories here or there. Bartolomeo's trying to get Shanks' territory. Okay. Was that a success? Who knows? But the Grand Fleet has probably gone crazy. And there's also a possibility here that several islands, like Fishman Island, Dressrosa, they have announced that they want to be under Luffy's wing, the Straw Hat wing, which means that Luffy has probably gained territory within the new world that he himself is not actually aware of. Again, theory crafting, but I think it's very likely. So that may also require a more in-depth video in the future. We have a month, plenty of time, but for the time being, that is it for the story progression component for this chapter. Now, thoughts in terms of story progression. This is an absolutely historic chapter. Even though we don't know what's going on exactly outside Wano Country, it is clearly some of the craziest material that Oda is setting up for the future. We even see a picture of Sabo and the Revolutionary Army flag, or a flag that we've seen before in the Caribou cover story, where he is actually mistaken for being a Revolutionary Army member, that kind of stuff. And also, this could involve an ongoing war, potentially, with Amazon Lily, right? Mihawk could be still doing probably is still doing some wild stuff. But whatever Mihawk is doing, or whatever Boa Hancock is doing, or even Weevil, pales in comparison to apparently Buggy, because Buggy became what they aren't, Yonko. How do you do it? I have some ideas, I do, but another video, another day, because that's what's going on outside of Wano. In Wano, there is still incoming tension and massive lore. Green Bull is here, Pluton is here. So even though we have a break, Wano Country is not over yet. Act 3 never ends. Never ends. I'm looking forward to seeing how this arc concludes with so much hype to come for an ancient weapon and an admiral inbound. However, the skipping is a bit overbearing. That's just the facts. That's just for the past 3 chapters. It has been overbearing to skip a lot of material, and this chapter is no exception. And it's the biggest issue. Again, I can understand why, like I said before, but yo, Oda, chill, man. Like, There are some things that are major, obviously. Big Mom Pirates, bounce. Beast Pirates, captured, but how many? Who? We don't know. But then it's even small moments, like Kinemon meeting his wife after 20 years. It's been 7 days. 7 days. They've met, they've chatted, they've talked, they've cried, they've laughed, and so on. We see none of that. And all we get is like a little panel in this chapter with the Kanpai celebration of his wife and him just doing the cheers. And what? Oda Skip No Mi has actually awakened. Like, that's how crazy I feel like this is right now over the past 3 or 4 chapters. There are flaws with this chapter, but because story-wise, it has been so historic on so many fronts, this chapter rating, 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10.